and welcome to another exciting edition of Nation Building. On our program, we examine the political, social, and moral issues in the leadership of the Bahamas. On our program today, we are privileged for the first time to have a head of state, or former head of state of the Bahamas, to appear on Nation Building. And so we have a long list of questions for him, but we'll introduce him when we come back from this break.
Being awarded a free live phone in the Making A's Pace campaign last year was one of the most exciting things that ever happened to me. I used my phone to play games, chat with friends over the summer break, and watch YouTube videos. Then I got an idea to start my own balloon business. Being able to use my own phone to start up my balloon business was so important to me. I used my phone to research prices and learn how to do balloon designs that I currently offer to my customers today. The internet speed was so good. Oh my gosh, there was no buffering and the videos were very clear. I am so grateful to Alive for my new phone. Thanks Alive. My name is Cara Snows, owner of the Balloon Princess, and I believe in best.
Good morning. Hi, would you like to try our chunk noodles?
I only come in here for 2 items.
Okay, but it'll only take 1 second and it's so delicious. Just 1 second.
Yeah, everything tastes delicious. Wow, it's really good. Where do I find it in the store?
Right this way, let me do it. Okay. Thank you.
I'm glad to see him. Do the shuffle. It's been a while, do the shuffle.
I can't do a shuffle, man.
You know what? You need this.
What's that?
Junkanoo Juice Medley.
That's it. Give me some more.
Come on, yeah, that's it. Jamaica Bahama Imports. Always got it.
Come on down and get your Junkanoo juice today.
It's the market for the entire family. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Bahamian owned and operated, Sawyer's is known for the lowest prices on meats, produce, fresh fruits, and vegetables. Check them out on Facebook and the Freeport News to find out all of their weekly specials and their monthly blowout sales. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Your grocery bill just got lower.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we are here today about to have a discussion with one of our former head of state, and he is His Excellency Sir ArthurFoulkes. Sir Arthur was the 8th Bahamian Governor General, having demitted office in July of 2014. Sir Arthur was sworn in, of course, on April of 2010 and served as our country's 8th Governor General. Sir Arthur, welcome.
Thank you.
To Nation Building.
Thank you.
It's a privilege having you here, sir.
You.
Today we are going to see how quickly we could take a journey down memory lane. I think that the country, is fair to say, especially the younger generation, is losing the history of the country, not understanding its origin, from whence we came as a people, and appreciating where we are and what is necessary to move to the future. So I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank you for your great service to our country over the years in the many, many capacities,
Thank you.
including in its very formation. And then to talk about how, one of the things I must say, and get it out the way quickly, you have a rich history yourself, having had, I believe, parents who were born in other countries, and some of your children in politics, and so many wonderful things. So let's get started and talk about your childhood days quickly. Where were you born and raised, and a little about your parents?
Well, my mother was was born in Cape Haitian, and her parents were, she was born into a French family who had migrated from Bordeaux, I understand, to Haiti. And when her father died, she was sent to Inagua to live with her aunt. And her aunt was a lady who was married to Arthur Simonet, who was the kingpin in Inagua at the time. He was the proprietor of the salt business and agent for steamships and all the rest of that. So that's how come my mother got to Inagua.
Okay.
As a young girl, really. And my father was born in Westmoreland, Jamaica. I know little about his, I did some research, but I don't know quite as much. His father was Samuel Foulkes, and my father's name was William Foulkes. And he went to the United States, where he became, studied in the States, where he became a medical doctor, joined the American Army, and then Sir Etienne de Puch, who was the representative for Inagua at the time, we're talking about 1926, thereabouts, right?
Yes, sir.
Was looking for a doctor to go to Inagua, because Inagua, as you know, was at one time a very prosperous community.
City, yes.
Yeah. And Sir Etienne was visiting Chicago, and he met this Dr. Foulkes, and so he said, would you want to come to the Bahamas to work? And my father said yes, and so he came to Inagua. So I'm pure accident. So he met my mother, and I was born in 1928. And I left Inagua just around the time that things started to blow up into the riot of '37. And I came to Nassau to go to school and look for a better future, because things were on the decline in Inagua. I went to Western Senior School, well, first of all, Western Junior, then Western Senior, which is now C.R. Walker. Interestingly, one of my teachers at Western Senior was Carlton Francis.
Whoa.
He was a young American soldier. He was Bahamian, but he also had served in the American Army, and he wasn't much older than us, it seemed to me.
Right.
But he was a teacher. I have fond memories of him. Later on, when I got into politics and Carl became my colleague, I still found it a little uncomfortable saying Carl.
Oh my goodness. Interesting.
You know, Mr. Francis.
Right, Mr. Francis.
Yeah. Anyway, when I left school, I went to work at The Guardian, line-type operator, proofreader. 1948, I went to work at the Tribune, line-type operator. And then it was at the Tribune that I got into journalism. And I became news editor of the Tribune. And then I became involved in politics. And that's a long
story. We'll get into some of it. Now, just briefly, your mom and your dad, did they get married?
They got married in Inagua, yes.
And lived there for?
No, well, my mother stayed there for many, many years. My father was transferred to Andros, right, not long after I was born. I was a babe in arms, actually. And in Andros, him and my parents split up. My mother left him and went back to Inagua. And so I was a bit of I'm from a broken family.
Right. Yeah. Which is unfortunately too often many of our Bahamian stories.
Yeah.
So having migrated to New Providence at the time, through school and then your job, did you get married very early, or were you still?
No, I was, my first marriage was when I was 24, 25, thereabouts, yeah. And we had a number of children, but I was deeply involved in politics. Politics became, well, journalism is my first love.
Right.
But as a result of journalism, I became more deeply involved in politics. And I used to cover the House of Assembly, And I suppose what I saw there during that period helped to radicalize me.
Stirred a radicalization. But before we dive into the journey, as far as the political journey, how do you think, Sir Arthur, I don't know anybody more qualified than you, probably His Excellency A.D. Hanna or someone of that nature, to say, Sir Lyndon's father was Jamaican. Your both parents, one originally from Haiti, one from Jamaica, and there are many others who have served. In fact, I've read in the history of the Bahamas that the first black to enter the House of Assembly actually was
born in Haiti. Stephen Dillard.
Stephen Dillard. How did our country, some say, become so xenophobic, or of this, especially of Caribbean nationals or foreigners in general, when the history is so steep with this intermingling of cultures?
I used to tease some of those who used to talk about these things, you know, and I said, you know, your name sounds very French to me. We forget that names like Poitiers, we say, Moncoeur, there are a lot of names. The Bahamas is something like United States. We're from all over, even from the United States. People forget that a lot of the African Bahamians didn't come directly here as slaves. Some of them did, but a lot of them came from the United States during the war. Hence the story of the slave community out at Clifton.
Clifton, right.
They were Americans. So we have cousins in Louisiana. That's where we got some cultural influences from. For instance, grits. That's not a Caribbean thing.
No, it's not.
That's a Southern American thing. So we're from all over. The Bahamians are from all over. And when I say all over, I mean all over. We have Caribbean Bahamians, American Bahamians, English, French. I even met, there was a gentleman one time I met his family in Andros. I met the young lady and she says, she gave me her name, I can't remember it now, something like Vyshinsky or something. I said, that's an odd name. You're Russian. When I was a boy in Chippenham, we had some people there from Vietnam, and we have Chinese people, we have people from all over. So
we're a melting pot.
Exactly. And I believe that has been good for us. I believe that gave us a very rich gene pool, and I think that accounts a lot for why we're so talented. You know, we're despite all our difficulties and faults and all that, we're one of the most talented people in the world.
Certainly.
When you consider our small population, when you consider what we have done
in athletics,
and sports, but also in the arts. I tell young people about Bert Williams. They say, who's Bert Williams? Bert Williams left the Bahamas in 18-something, went to America, and became perhaps the leading comedian. He was multi-talented. He was a comedian, he sang, and he was an actor. He performed at Buckingham Palace back in the day. Few of us know about it. And from then we have been producing
movie stars,
world-class
Sydney,
people,
and
and intellectuals as well.
Right.
Yep.
So let's talk then about let's go back to the early 30s and 40s and talk about what was political life like in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas at the time.
Well, very briefly, the country was still a typical British colonial territory. And what that meant was we had our overseers were really British. We had a British Governor General, and there was the effects of slavery were still with us. There was discrimination. Black Bahamians didn't enjoy the same rights as white Bahamians and English people who came here to settle. And that was a long, long struggle, which started way back then. For those who might be interested, let me suggest that about those days, let me suggest that they read Sean McQueenie's new book, Breaching the Gates.
Breaching the Gates.
Sean McQueenie is very talented, and he's done an excellent job in giving an exposition of that era.
In your opinion,
about Stephen Dillett and people like that.
In your opinion, is that one of the must-reads for history?
Yes, right now, yeah. Right now. I must say this, it is true as you said at the beginning. We have not been all that good at passing our history on to our young people. But you know what? I found there's a thirst amongst our young people, because I get calls all the time from students, especially from the University of the Bahamas. They want to know about this. And I welcome that, and I always talk to them, because that is so important.
Absolutely.
That we know our history.
Yes. You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Hi, would you like to try our chunk noodles?
I only come in here for 2 items.
Okay, but it'll only take 1 second, and it's so delicious. Just 1 second.
Yeah, everything tastes delicious. Wow, it's really good. Where do I find it in the store?
Right this way. Let me show you. Okay. Thank you.
Glad to see you. Do the shuffle.
Shuffle.
Been a while, do the shuffle.
I can't do shuffle, man.
You know what? You need this.
What's that?
Junkanoo Juice Medley.
That's it. Give me some more.
Jamaica Bahama Imports. Always got it.
Come on down and get your Junkanoo juice today.
In the past, I've had a lot of issues with service, data service, drop calls. I was encouraged by a very close friend of mine to make the switch, and in doing so, my service has been impeccable. The data is very fast, it doesn't spool, it doesn't take long to load, so everything works beautifully. I like to know what my bills are, and it's important that I'm able to simply just pick up my phone and know what my bill is. The front line for the Valley Boys is comprised of about 200 members. It's very important because to be a successful leader, I need to be able to efficiently and consistently communicate with them. It works that way. It's beautiful. The data that you guys provide is flawless. I'm John Williams, Chairman of the Frontline Dancers Association of the Valley Boys, and I believe in best.
It's the market for the entire family. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Bahamian owned and operated, Sawyer's is known for the lowest prices on meats, produce, fresh fruits, and vegetables. Check them out on Facebook and the Freeport News to find out all of their weekly specials and their monthly blowout sales. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Your grocery bill just got lower.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we are here today. Very important interview. I think this is one for the history books. We have with us His Excellency Sir ArthurFoulkes, of course, who is the country's 8th Governor General, now retired. So Arthur, let's talk about the formation of political parties in the Bahamas. You talked about the 30s and 40s and what life was like for the average Bahamian at the time. One, what really brought about the formation of both political parties, and which one got started first?
Mm-hmm. Well, the history, we have a long history of political parties, actually. A lot of people don't remember that back in the days we were talking about, back in the 20s, 30s, there was a party called the Ballot Party, which was started by R.M. Bailey, that's a familiar name, and some people with him were S.C. McPherson, C.C. Sweeting. They succeeded that group of black leaders at the time they succeeded in agitating for higher education for black Bahamians who had no opportunity for secondary education.
And this was in the 19 when?
In the 20s.
20s.
And this is how we got the government high school. Another one of those who was a part of that struggle, though he was never in Parliament as far as I can gather, was W.P. Adderley, who was the grandfather of Paul Adderley. Right? So, but we had in 1928, we had 9 colored, that was the nomenclature of today, colored. We had 9 colored representatives in the House of Assembly, but that was reduced by 1935 to 4. And there was that, again I mentioned Mr. McCraney's book, there was that struggle for equality. The ballot party didn't get anywhere. Some other parties came along, can't remember the names of some of them. And then a gentleman by the name of Bill Cartwright, had the idea in the 50s to start a real political party.
By that you mean a party that would compete across the country?
Across the country. That William Cartwright, and he contacted Cyril Stevenson, who was a journalist, and they traveled to England, to Jamaica, educating themselves about how political parties are operated. And they decided to start a party which they named the Progressive Liberal Party. And they went to H.M. Taylor, as I understand it, this is the story I was given, and asked him, he was older than them, to be the chairman. Now, while Mr. Cartwright and Mr. Stevenson developed the idea, most of the credit for establishing what I regard, not what I regard, which is factually the first national political party. That is, a party that had representation across the country. And that was due primarily to the efforts of H.M. Taylor as chairman, because he went into every island and started branches. And that took a lot of doing back then. I mean, the traveling alone. And he kept in touch with them. Are you familiar with the Gestapo machine?
No,
no. Gestapo is the old, we would say primitive now, machine to do multiple copies. Very inky and messy. And I remember going to Mr. Taylor's house on Shirley Street. I used to work at the Tribune, so it was just around the corner. And when I left work, I used to go to him to help with the letters. He had this Gestapo, and he had the addresses of all these people in the Family Islands. And he would run off letters and mail them out. He was quite a remarkable man in that regard. We became, the relations between us became rather strained when my group came along, the young radicals. But they established the first, what I regard as the first national political party. And as you know, and as I think everybody well knows, the UBP came along. They formalized themselves into a party, but they were known before as the Bay Street Boys. They've been variously described as classical oligarchy and that sort of thing. They came along and formalized themselves into a political party called United Bahamian Party in response to
the Progressive Liberal Party.
Again, as old people say, to make a long story short, there was an intense struggle for majority rule. I'm proud to say that I was privileged to participate in that and to be one of those who was elected in 1967.
Right.
And there was tension in the PLP right after we got power. And as a result of that, 8 members of Parliament split off from the PLP and started the Free National Movement. We could talk for an hour about that, but that briefly would
but I don't want to lose, for history's sake, quickly, the fact that you served as an official organ of the Progressive Liberal Party in that infancy stage, well, I guess in between 62 and 67, in your role when you, I believe, was head of a newspaper that was pretty much an arm of the Progressive Liberal Party. Just for a minute,
there's no question about it. I left the Tribune after the disappointment of 1962 when we lost because of the inequality in the electoral system. And I, along with some friends, younger men at the time, we decided we had to take a different approach to our politics. And to do that, we had to have a voice. And so I left the Tribune in early in 1963 and started Bahamian Times. And to our surprise, what we decided to do was to deal with issues in depth and to bring some sort of intellectual understanding. And people said, well, you're crazy, that's not going to work. But we decided we had the talent to explain these things. And lo and behold, our style of journalism, I always said, was tabloid in format, but not tabloid in content. It was a series, and to our surprise, the paper caught on like wildfire. People used to line up to read. We never heard this before. We talked about African history. We talked about our roots. We tried to dispel that well, I guess you could say,
stigma?
in some people's self-loathing, that inferiority thing that is bred into a lot of us at the time, and peculiar ideas about the capacity of different races to govern.
Right.
And these were the issues that we had to deal with, because a lot of people believed that black people can't govern.
Strange enough, I shared this with someone in reading, I think Michael Creighton's book on history of the Bahamas, that I found out a few years ago that the black people in the Bahamas at the time struggled with the PLP in so much that they could not, as you said, see their own people governing them, governing us, and so that was kind of weird.
A lot of people felt that way, and like Lyndon put it one time, it was the shackles on their minds that we had to deal with. And to do that, we had to go. And I always say, we are all human beings. We are what we are as a result of our history and our circumstances. But we belong to the same race. Black people can govern just as well as white people, and unfortunately just as badly too.
It's all about the mind. What then, as you played a critical role in, how did you sustain yourself with that, the Bahamian Times?
Well, that was quite a struggle. That was I look back sometime and wonder how we made it, because the paper couldn't make money. There was no advertising. People were afraid. There were one or two brave souls who would advertise with us, like Mr. Store, the electrical thing, and the little ads they could afford at the time. But it wasn't about that. People contributed. People bought shares just to support the party and to support the newspaper. They were so excited, and that's how we survived. Personally, that was a difficult time for us, because again, money wasn't coming in. We had to depend on colleagues. It was very, very difficult. And I already had a large family. Right,
to support. And so we're going to do two things quickly before we break. And one is, I know you ran for office. It was in 1967. Was that the first?
No, I ran in 62.
So
and I lost in the East. Eddie Hanna and I were running mates together in the East.
Right. At that time, there were two in a constituency.
Precisely.
Right.
And some constituencies had three.
Okay.
Like Harbor Island and Albuquerque.
So to be clear, you won together or lost together? So in other words, if you
I lost 81. 80 and Jeffrey Johnstone were elected.
How did that work? Meaning you have two candidates from each party in a particular constituency. So was that constituency split in four, or how did you?
No. You got a ballot, with all the names of the candidates. And you had two choices. But you could do what they call a plumper. There were a number of people who, because 80 was there before, thought that it would be a good idea for 80 to go in senior, because we had senior and junior member. And so a number of our supporters would be called plumpered AD. They gave one vote and they threw away the other vote. And so that's how I lost. Yeah.
So in 1967, you ran in the same constituency?
No, I ran in Grantstown.
You ran in Grantstown, and you won?
Yes.
Okay, so let's jump back a little and just for a moment talk about your children. How many kids do you have? I know you, at least one of them has been fortunate enough to...
9 by my first marriage.
Right.
And 3 after that. Yeah.
How many of them got into politics?
2. In action, frontline politics.
Right.
I mean, like
Representation.
Dion, and Michael.
Right.
But I think they're all political. They're a political family.
It was in the blood.
In the blood,
okay.
yeah.
So, after the 67 election, we know the election was called in 68 which turned out to give the PLP a significant, more significant majority. Just quickly walk us through the 68 election and the split quickly.
68?
Yes.
Okay. Well, right after we got in, you remember the margin was very, very thin.
Right.
And we lost one of our members, Uriah McPhee, died.
Right.
And we had a choice of either having a by-election or going for general. It was a risk, because it was only about a year. And so we decided, under the leadership of Sir Lyndon Pentland, as you know, let's go for general election and see
roll
what
the
happens.
dice.
Roll the dice. Because actually, that first year, the PLP did very well. A lot of things got done. Cecil Wallace Whitfield, who was in charge of Ministry of Works, got over the hill lit up. You had electricity through all those little corners. Some of the dead ends were straightened out. A lot of stuff was done. And Warren Lavarity, who was in charge of Out Island Affairs at the time, got a lot of things done in the Family Island just in that 1 year. And so we felt confident. And our confidence was rewarded with an overwhelming majority in 68. And perhaps that was not good for us.
Okay, what really, it can contrast that to today. Why does it take so long for political organizations, and we know the two main parties has struggled with getting things done as quickly as you did back then in 1 year?
Well, today things, we have, well, let me put it like this. Back then, the things we got done were simple things that were just simply neglected, like lights through the corners in Grantstown. The people in the Family Islands wanted a graveyard tender. They wanted a little dock. They were not really huge things.
Low-hanging fruit?
Low-hanging fruit, yes. Yeah.
And so...
But it showed an interest, and these are the things we promised to do. There were a lot of other things that we unfortunately never got to do, which we had talked about for many, many years. But that's another story.
Right. So you succeeded. In a brief summary, what really was the crux of the divide?
The crux of the divide was what we succeeded, what we did, what we achieved was as a result of collegiality, all of us together. And there's some people who made some sacrifices, unlike us, those of us on the front lines, whose names will never be known. Some we know, some who never ran for office. So it was an effort by a lot of people. And those on the political front, like Cecil Wallace Whitfield and many others. But after we got power, there was the collegiality waned, unfortunately. And some people started to develop what we call a cult of the personality around Cylinder. And that led to a number of things. And that really was the crux of the matter. Because when we were seeking to get the government, we used to meet constantly, Saturday boil fish to talk over what are we going to do and the problems. Even in government, oh well, different now. Some ministers, you know. And
So it seems to me it's still a problem today. Many would say that, you know, people get in office and they lose touch with the things and the commitments and the reality. And I assume that being in office has that temptation is there to lose touch.
Some people react differently to power. Some people are humble enough to understand their role and to appreciate that they're only playing a temporary role in the affairs of their country. There are others who will put on airs and think that they are, like Eugene Depute used to say, they become affected by the, how did he put it, the rarefied air in the cabinet office. But collegiality was so important, and that when collegiality went, and things didn't get done. A lot of things that some of us thought that we should have been more effective in carrying out those promises. And there was some other things, there was a lot of stuff. That'll take a whole program by itself.
Okay. History suggests that you have been a very strong glue that has either united or helped to keep factions together over the years, especially during the 70s. And so tell us a little about the late 70s and early 80s when negotiations unfolded and I guess Sir Kendall Isaacs became...
Yeah. Well, the same disease quickly took its toll in the FNM after the 72 election, and there was a split in the party as a result of that. There was a faction we called the BDP, which split off from Cecil. I'll tell you an interesting little vignette. In the election in 72, I ran in Delaport for what they called the BDP at the time. Basil Nichols, who has been a lifelong friend of mine, he ran in Delaport too for Cecil's, for the FNM. They kept the name. On the night of the election, when the votes were coming in, I was in my headquarters, and somebody knocked on the door, and there was Basil, my opponent, with a brown paper bag with beers, cold beers. And he came in, and some of my workers and my family were looking, what is this? And we went into the back room, still listening to the results. We knew we'd be defeated because either one of us would have won that seat. Without
you split the vote.
We split the vote, exactly. And a lot of people didn't vote for us because of that. And they told us so. Well, Basil came in, and we sat, and we smoked cigarettes, and we drank beers, and he said, man, we can't do this again. He says, let you and I tonight, and remember, this is the night of the election, and we are two opponents in that election. I think that was the most remarkable, at least to me.
Right.
And that night, Basil and I decided we're going to put the thing back together.
Okay.
And we had a long period of negotiations, and finally, we decided to bring the party back together in time for the next election. That was after 77. For the 82 election, under the leadership of Kendall Isaacs. And Cecil agreed with that, by the way, and we all...
You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back after these messages.
It's the market for the entire family. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Bahamian owned and operated, Sawyer's is known for the lowest prices on meats, produce, fresh fruits, and vegetables. Check them out on Facebook and the Freeport News to find out all of their weekly specials and their monthly blowout sales. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Your grocery bill just got lower.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Hi, would you like to try our chunk noodles?
I only come in here for 2 items.
Okay, but it'll only take 1 second and it's so delicious. Just 1 second.
Yeah, everything tastes delicious. Wow, it's really good. Where do I find it in the store?
Right this way, let me do it. Okay. Thanks.
Glad to see you. Do the shuffle. It's been a while, do the shuffle.
I can't do shuffle, man.
You know what? You need this.
What's that?
Junkanoo juice medley.
That's it. Give me some more.
Jamaica Bahama imports. Always got it.
Come on down and get your Junkanoo juice today.
My name is Regilio Bethel. My position on board Equinox is mate, relief captain. I must say that during our travels and journeys throughout the Exuma Keys, we've had a few dark or dead spots. Basically, there was no service. They were just dark spots. We would basically be dead ship out in the cold without any communication. And it's been like that for years, and we've gotten used to it. But life has now provided us with a service which we can stay communicated during our entire voyages. And I've been waiting for Life to bring their service up to more coverage throughout the Bahamas, which they've done in an amazing amount of time. So yeah, I would encourage them all to get that service. It's an awesome service, no interruptions, and it's awesome.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. We have the privilege today of having a discussion. We're learning from His Excellency Sir ArthurFoulkes. And of course, Sir Arthur was the 8th Governor General of the Bahamas, and he has a wealth of knowledge that he's sharing with us. Sir Arthur, after uniting for the 1982 general elections, and we know the party did not succeed until 1992, but you were united in 82 under Kendall Isaacs.
And we did well in that election. That election there was some very controversial practices during that election. But the FNM got 11 seats.
And the seat count at the time was what?
33, I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So move on. 1987 was the election when
No, I beg your pardon.
Right.
It was the 87 election. It was the 87 election which was so deeply flawed.
Right.
Not 82.
Not 82, right. So I was going to say the 1987 election was the election when I thought most of the country, I was a young man at the time, on Bay Streets, but I wasn't in the protest, but observing the protests going on shortly after the 87 general election, and recognized that, and a lot of people felt that FNM was cheated at the time. We don't have time to go into the details of that, but unfortunately, one of the history of the country, one of the amazing things that happened was those who were in that great struggle, one who led it, never got to see victory. So just quickly tell us, how did, as far as you know, the Right Honorable Hubert Ingram become the leader of the Free National Movement as opposed to one of the more senior? I think Sir Orville was the deputy at the time. Why did not that happen?
Well, very briefly, when Hubert Ingram and Perry Christie left the PLP because of the because of the drug scandal,
right,
it was noble of them. That really captured the imagination of the public. And the FNM was going through a very difficult period of time in leadership because Kendall Isaacs was sick. He was a very ill man. And Cecil was not well, as we found out. And Ingram offered to lead, and the party, I think, almost unanimously accepted that. He was young, vigorous, he had ideas, and his ideas was same as ours, collegiality, the same things he believed in. And so he joined the party.
And he was a firebrand.
And he was a firebrand, yeah. And so that's how come, I remember there was a meeting when this was done, when this was concluded. It was at the home of Mrs. Sylvia Scriven, when all of the leadership got together and we decided this is what we will do.
So finally in 1992, the long decades of sacrifices paid off for the political party that you were part of, the Free National Movement. And you and the party won, and you were appointed to the Foreign Service. I believe you served as High Commissioner to London and Ambassador to many countries in Europe. Very briefly, how fulfilling was that for you, and how did that fit? How did you fit into that role?
That was quite fulfilling, actually. It was another opportunity for me to serve my country in a different way. And they took someone who tried to be a politician and tried to make me a diplomat. But those years were very, very interesting. But I have to tell you, I think I might have preferred to be home.
I suspected so. That's why I asked. I suspected so. I think
and more in the mix,
right.
know?
The cut and thrust of political action was in you. I never saw you as a diplomat, but nonetheless, you served as best as you could.
Yes.
The final thing that we want to capture from you today is just how in the 60s there was a struggle between what existed, and that struggle went on for many decades as well, the inequality and other things in the country. Also, the younger generation of Bahamians many of them see the political system, and some who are not so young, so we've had some clergy who share the same sentiments, that the political system is something we inherited from, it's a colonial system that is passed down that has not or is no longer working for us. This first past the post, winner take all, and we need some checks and balance. And so some favor more like the democratic republic system that America practices over what we have had. Share with us your thoughts as to what system really is a better fit for us and why.
Well, first of all, I get so worked up when I hear this argument. We do not have a colonial system of government. We have a modern parliamentary democracy. The colonial system of government, we started to dismantle that in 1963 when we got our first written constitution and cabinet government for the first time. We got some further changes in 1969 with another constitution in 73. We do not have a colonial system of government today. That's wrong. We have a system of government that has been chosen by a lot of countries around the world. And you know, we say, I think what confuses people, we talk about this Westminster system. That's only shorthand because the principles, the fundamental principles of parliamentary democracy and cabinet government are common to Westminster, and we use those same principles: collegiality, collective responsibility. The other countries, the Americans, why anybody would want to borrow anything from the American system of government, I do not know. Because in my view, they have an 18th century constitution, which the founders, in my view, if they were living today in the 21st century, they would not write that constitution for a world power like the United States. Just look at what's happening in America today. Look, for instance, the Senate is a very powerful body in the United States. The Senate is so undemocratic. There are about 5 or 6 states in America with less than 1 million people. Each of them have 2 senators. Each of them, 2 senators. California, with some 40 million people, how many senators they got?
2.
2.
Same 2.
Same 2.
And some argue, just to bring a balance, some argue that the founders of America was wise in that they didn't want to have what we would equate as a fair system where population centers like California, New York, and Florida would command so much authority, power in terms of presidential votes, or so that all leaders would have to do is just win the major cities and not do anything for the out states?
There were other considerations. Don't forget, America was still a slave state. There were considerations about the smaller states. There were a lot of things that caused that, which we don't have the time to go into. But that, for instance, the present president of the United States did not get the majority of the votes in the last election. Hillary Clinton got about 3 million more votes than Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is the president.
Right.
Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson, they wouldn't write that Constitution today. But they had to meet certain needs. They had to deal with the realities of their day.
It was a compromise.
Don't forget, they were just putting a new country together, you know, and states, they had to satisfy the states. So we could talk about that again, but my point is, we have, when the Americans, for instance, after World War II, Germany was defeated, Japan was defeated. The Americans under General MacArthur had to give Japan a new form of government. They didn't give them, they didn't try to imitate, no. They gave them a parliamentary democracy just as we have. A monarchy, but a parliamentary democracy with a cabinet, elected members, and a cabinet and with collective responsibility. Now, there's a misunderstanding about republic. You don't compare a republic with parliamentary democracy. You compare republic with monarchy. We could become a republic simply by changing the status of our head of state, Governor General, and making the Governor General president. Simple. You have a republic. So and everything else stay in place.
While time is running out, I don't want to let you go without getting a few of these. Do you believe that it would do us well to have an elected president?
No.
Why not?
Absolutely not. Because I hear people say, for instance, oh, the prime minister got too much power. Now, if you want a head of government like America with too much power, you have him elected directly with certain powers like Donald Trump has today. The prime minister in our system is not as powerful as people think. The prime minister is not what we would call a chief executive. All the important decisions taken by the government of the Bahamas, they're made not by the prime minister, but by the cabinet, the Constitution.
So the cabinet members give him the power that he has?
Yes.
And I guess
yes,
over
he's
the
chief spokesman.
I guess over the years, by influence, our prime ministers have led and have gotten influence, and so it seems like dictatorship, as some would say. Last of all, is there anything in our current system that you would tinker with in terms of bringing about reform?
Yeah, there are always some things you could do better, eh? But the fundamentals, you know, again, this Westminster thing, one of the oldest parliaments in the world is Iceland. They're even older than Westminster, same principles. And the bottom line is, people want to be governed by their own elected representatives. That's what we have in the Bahamas. And in America, the cabinet, not one member of the cabinet is elected.
As we close, one last word. What is your greatest desire, having sacrificed so much of your life to help in the formation of our country? What is your greatest desire for the next generation of Bahamians as you see the future?
How much time have you got?
A minute. I said your greatest desire.
My goodness. It's difficult to say which one comes first, you know.
One of them.
Yeah. Education. An educated, prosperous, cultured people. Cultured people. I worry so much. Our artistic culture, I've said this again, our artistic culture, we are doing well with our artistic culture. But we got to look out for, again, what I see as a sort of decline in our social culture, where we have this propensity to imitate what I call the low end of other people's culture. And we have a fine culture. People used to come to the Bahamas, Americans, and they were amazed when they met a Bahamian man. His manners. He said, yes, sir, no, ma'am. He would fix a chair for the lady. And we would talk the way we talk. Now so many of us want to imitate what we see on American TV.
Have we, as a people, have we lost value for our Creator God? Is the church a critical part of the new developing or recapturing some of those values? The
church can play quite an important role, but also even in the church, you know, we see this tendency to imitate the Americans. Even we talk like them.
So Arthur, it's been a great pleasure to have you here, sir. We thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. On behalf of all of us here at Nation Building, we're so pleased to have been able to bring this broadcast to you. Hope you've learned a lot today. Stay tuned for the next edition of Nation Building, and as always, have a great week.
The concierge service is the best thing ever. Like, it is so fabulous, especially for someone like me where I cannot leave my office, my job, to go do anything in the middle of the day because I'm on the radio. The service was so fabulous. The ladies gave me a call. They set up an appointment. They come with their professional looking attire. They're just so cute. And they come here, and it was a great experience. It took 20 minutes to switch over to the Alive service. It was simple. It was easy. And they just made me feel so welcomed. They explained everything. They hooked me up with my new phone. They gave me my data package. As you can see, hey. And it was fabulous. It was a wonderful service, but what I really liked best about it was not only did they come here and make it easy for me, but they continued to check up on me. The next day, they made sure that everything was working properly with the phone. I didn't have any issues. The following week, they contacted me again, and I've built a relationship with them. They've continued to check up on me. I feel like I'm part of the Alive family. It's amazing.
It's the market for the entire family. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Bahamian owned and operated, Sawyer's is known for the lowest prices on meats, produce, fresh fruits, and vegetables. Check them out on Facebook and the Freeport News to find out all of their weekly specials and their monthly blowout sales. Sawyer's Fresh Market. Your grocery bill just got lower.
Good morning. Good morning. Hi, would you like to try our chunk meat?
I only come in here for 2 items.
Okay, but it'll only take 1 second, and it's so delicious. Just 1 second.
Yeah, everything tastes delicious. Wow, it's really good. Where do I find it in the store?
Right this way. Let me show you. Okay. And stop talking about it. Right.
Glad to see you. Do the shuffle.
Shuffle?
Been a while, do the shuffle.
I can't do shuffle, man.
You know what? You need this.
What's that?
Junkanoo Juice Medley.
That's it. Give me some more.
Come on. That's it. Jamaica Bahama Imports. Always got it.
Come on down and get your Junkanoo juice today.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from GEMS 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice Medley has on me is exhilarating.
I've been a customer for the past 2 years, and I will say the quality of The service is very good. During my trip to Andros, I was connected the entire trip. So that was really good. I was able to contact my family members and let them know how the trip was going. We touched land, we're here. So it was very good. And I really appreciate that. And also during times like when we had the storm, it was really good to have that service to reach out to our loved ones to make sure everyone is okay. And I really appreciate Alive for that. And even when there's a little technical difficulty, they always send out a little text message to let us know exactly what's going on. I'm happy to be alive, and I believe in best.